I have put up this brain teaser for you before we get started, just to get you thinking a little bit before we dive in. So if you haven't yet thought about these two questions, please take a second and answer them to yourself. In life, in general, would you rather be early or delayed? And pay a penalty or get a bonus? And we'll be returning to these questions a little bit later. So I just want to welcome everybody. You are at the Social Security webinar, What Baby Boomers Need to Know About Their Retirement Income. And when your parents retired, they probably didn't think too much about Social Security. They went down to the local office as soon as they turned 65 or maybe 62 if they retired early, and applied for benefits and took their benefits for granted for the most part and didn't ask very many questions. But times have changed, and baby boomers approach the Social Security question in a different way, and it's actually creating a problem for many. So what people are doing is they're hurting their retirements by actually making some really bad, costly decisions about Social Security. And this is the main challenge that we're going to try to solve tonight, and one of the reasons that I wanted to do this webinar for you. So before we do, I just want to address a couple of things about the presentation. So again, you may be wondering, why is a financial planner here to talk about a government program like Social Security? And that's a good question. There's actually a big need for Social Security education. The nice folks at the office for Social Security are order takers. They're not paid or don't have the capability of providing advice to help you maximize your Social Security. And so we're going to try to help with that. And many uninformed people make bad decisions about Social Security. And that actually affects me and my job of trying to work with clients to help correct maybe bad decisions that they've made on Social Security and figure out how to help them since they have a lower than necessary Social Security benefit. Seeing a couple of things in the chat. I just want to make sure we're okay here. Give me just a second. Okay, I'm hearing there's a terrible echo and it's hard to understand what's being said. So I hate that. I'm not sure why that would be. We'll get better at these as we go, I suppose. I'm also seeing no echo here. So you might check some things on your end and see if maybe that clears up for you. I hate that for you. So one last thing about questions. We're going to take some questions if you have questions at the end, but we're going to make time for those only at the end. This is a longer session that we're going to be doing tonight. It's going to take the full hour. And so I want to make sure we get done on time and let people go if they want to go. But if you do have a question, you can type it in the chat box, like some of you did on the echo comment, and feel free to do that. And we will address as many of those as we can. Also, if you want to make sure that you're anonymous, there's a box down there that you can check to make sure that nobody knows that you're the one asking the question. So sometimes questions can be a little embarrassing, so just know that you can do that. So let's dive in. I'm going to make you two guarantees tonight. Number one, I'm going to try to make people smarter about claiming Social Security, and I think you'll be better prepared to make a good decision after the presentation. Number two, number two is I want to make sure that you understand that I'm actually, sorry, I flipped the slide there. I want to make sure that you understand that I'm not trying to sell you anything. This is not where I'm getting you on here and I'm going to talk about this and then try to offer you. So it's not a sales gimmick. There's not going to be any selling going on. This is purely to educate you and help you so that you make good decisions in retirement. Okay, so let's dive in. Let's see here. A few things to know about Social Security, and I'm going to try to make this as interesting as possible. This is a very analytical talk. The next webinar that we're going to be having is much more general and conceptual. This one's not. So I'm going to try to make it as interesting as I can. There are a lot of details here, and we're recording the webinar so that you can go back and watch it later if you can't remember everything. So you have many claiming options. So one couple could actually have up to 18,000 ways to claim their benefit. I know that sounds crazy, but we normally narrow it down when we're doing an analysis for a client to the 4 or 5 most useful scenarios for them. Your decisions have far-reaching consequences. Most decisions are irreversible after 12 months. Did you know that if you do find that you've claimed and you decided that was a mistake, or you want to change something, you can within the first 12 months, by and large, you can reverse it, but after that, not possible. So your choice impacts both spouses. Very important point. If you're married, you have more options and also more planning opportunities. The next one is Social Security is not bankrupt, and it's not a Ponzi scheme. And then some of your friends and family have probably been helped by Social Security benefits. And at the same time, few of your friends have expertise on Social Security, although many of our friends are happy to give us their opinion, aren't they? Which is okay. We just have to realize they're not an expert. And what we're seeing is that baby boomers want to know if Social Security is actually going to be there for them. You've been told for years that the system's going broke, and now that it's your turn to collect, is that really true? And am I going to get anything out of Social Security? And should that fear impact my decision on when to start Social Security? You'll also want to know how much you can expect to receive. Before you can retire, you've got to have all your ducks in a row, right? And know how you're going to support yourself. So that means doing a budget, lining up all your income sources, knowing how much you can expect to receive from each thing. And Social Security, because it's a relatively known quantity, actually represents the foundation of that plan. And you're probably also asking when you should apply for Social Security. You may have heard that if you apply early, your benefit will be lower than if you apply later, but is it worth missing out on all those extra checks to have a higher benefit later on? And we're going to shed some light on this important question. Something your parents probably never asked is, how is it possible to maximize benefits? And there's absolutely nothing wrong with using the Social Security rules to your advantage. And today we're gonna talk about 5 ways that you can actually maximize your Social Security benefits simply by knowing the rules and making smart decisions. And finally, if you're wondering whether Social Security is going to be enough to live on in retirement, the answer is it usually represents about 40% of the average income for a retiree. But if you coordinate that, if you maximize your benefit the best you can and coordinate it with the rest of your plan, it will definitely help you have a worry-free, comfortable retirement. So most people tend to minimize the value of Social Security. And if they believe that they're likely to get something back from the system, then they think it's going to be hardly anything, not really enough to count on. But Social Security actually is more valuable than people realize. So it's underestimated. I deal with this question a lot when I meet with clients. Some people are worried that Social Security won't be around when they retire. And it's led to a lot of misunderstandings and irrational fears, really, about the solvency of the system. So we're going to look into this a little bit, and we're going to see what the trustees say Every year they publish a comprehensive report that shows the long range outlook for Social Security. And a little history here. So Social Security was designed as a pay-as-you-go system. Payroll taxes from current workers go into a trust fund, and then they're immediately paid out to current retirees. And because baby boomers have been in their peak earning years, the trust has actually accumulated more than needed for current benefits. Right now, the trust fund holds around $3 million, and that's invested in Treasury securities. But as baby boomers start to retire, these trust fund assets will gradually be drawn down. And that's where the conversation usually starts, and the fear around going broke. So over the next 75 years, costs are going to begin to exceed income. There are enough reserves that the system will be able to pay 100% of promised benefits until 2034. And after that, if nothing is done to reform the system, the income is only going to be sufficient to cover 79% of proposed benefits. So there is an issue that has to be addressed. It's not an imminent danger, but most people agree that the earlier the reforms are done, the less painful they will be on everyone. So here are just a few ideas that have been proposed. One is increase the maximum earnings subject to Social Security tax. So I don't know if you're aware, but just like the first 143,000 in earnings, in annual earnings, that somebody has, like their wages are subject to the 6.2%. So if they're making more than that, that additional amount is not subject to FICA. And another reform proposal calls for raising the normal retirement age as life expectancies increase. And they've actually done this. So you might notice that for older people, the full retirement age was lower, actually 65. Now, full retirement age is 66 for people if you're born between 43 and 54, and 67 for people born in 1960 or later. Still, another reform proposal would change the benefit formula so that future increases are going to happen at a slower pace. And that's going to affect the benefits of future retirees. And some are talking about changing the formula for cost of living adjustments. So this could give retirees smaller benefit increases going forward, although those changes are minimal. So if you are a nerd like me and you want to learn more about Social Security reform proposals from the American Academy of Actuaries, you can go to their website. I'm going to type this into the chat. It's actuary.org. And you can actually go there and should be able to find out all kinds of helpful information about that topic. So the bottom line for baby boomers is really your benefits are not likely to be affected by much, if at all. So you can stop worrying about the fact that Social Security won't be there for you in the future. So after thinking about that, you might be sitting back and saying, well, is there a clearer way to think about Social Security? There's so much to think about. So we're going to look at a definition. Social Security is inflation protected income that you cannot outlive. Even after your death, your benefit could continue in the form of survivor benefits, which we'll talk about later. Your premium or your tax is listed on your paycheck receipt under FICA, which stands for Federal Insurance Contribution Act. And you and your employers have paid the premium in every paycheck. So you want to be smart about how and when to collect this earned benefit. So let's look at its various features now. First, Social Security is one of the few sources of income that you cannot outlive. If you're worried about running out of personal assets in your old age, you need not have that fear with Social Security because it continues until you die. And of course, the longer you live, the more you're going to get out of the system. If your benefit starts out at $2,000 a month and you live 10 more years, you're going to get about $300,000 in lifetime benefits. And if you live 20 more years, you'll receive over $600,000 in lifetime benefits. And if you live 30 more years, you're going to get over $1 million over your lifetime. And this assumes, of course, an annual cost of living adjustment of 2%. And that number changes each year based on inflation to protect against inflation. Actually, the people that are on Social Security just received a pretty hefty cost of living adjustment because of the current inflationary situation that we're in right now. Second, Social Security offers additional inflation adjustments. So if your benefit starts out at $2,000 a month, this is that cost of living adjustment I was talking about. So if you're at a 2% cost of living adjustment, in 10 years, you're going to be receiving $2,400 instead of $2,000. And then in 20 years, your benefit's going to be almost $3,000. And then in 30 years, it's going to be about $3,600 instead of $2,000. So that's something to definitely keep in mind. And it really matters because it affects your benefit a great deal. So how much can you expect to receive from the system? When your Social Security benefit is calculated, it's going to be based on how much you earned over your working career and the age at which you apply for benefits. So at this point, I'm going to pause and just tell you, we're getting ready to get into some heavy formulas here. And so if you're not into that, you know, you can just do the la, 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 or go get a drink of water or something, and you can rejoin us in a little bit. But I want you to understand, while you may never calculate this yourself, I want you to understand the general process. So we're going to start with a general idea, just so you understand how it works, because many people do not really understand how it's calculated. So first, Social Security looks at your annual earnings over your entire lifetime, indexes them for inflation, and then picks the 35 highest years earnings to include in the formula. The indexed earnings are totaled up and divided by 35 to get the average. And I want you to hear this part. I want you to understand this. So listen up. If you don't have 35 years of earnings, the missing years will be filled in with zeros. I'm going to say it again. If you don't have 35 years of earnings, the missing years are going to be filled in with zeros. Let's go back to school. Remember when you forgot the homework assignment and you got a 0 on it, and how that factors into your grade? It's a real bummer when that happens. So that's something to definitely keep in mind. And it has the effect of lowering your benefits, of course, especially for people who have taken time out of the workforce to raise children, for example. So one of the flip sides to that is those people actually may be eligible for a spousal benefit, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But next, the formula is applied to your average index monthly earnings to determine your primary insurance amount. Okay. So average indexed monthly earnings, or AIM, to determine your primary insurance amount, or PIA. The primary insurance amount is what you're going to receive when you reach full retirement age, which is somewhere between 66 and 67. Cost of living adjustments are applied every year to help keep you up with the cost of living like we talked about. So here we go. Here's an example of how the formula would work for a baby boomer born in 59 who earned the Social Security max every year since the age of 22. His AIM, average indexed monthly earnings, would work out to be about $11,000. In calculating his primary insurance amount, the first 1,000 is going to be multiplied by 90%. Now, hang on. This is, if you're familiar with tax brackets, so keep in mind, this is a government program and they have weird formulas on how to do things. So this is kind of like tax brackets. So just think about it in terms of that. So the first $1,000 or so is going to be multiplied by 90%. The amount between the 1,000 and 6,000 is going to be multiplied by 32%. The amount over 6,000 is going to be multiplied by 15%. And then these amounts are totaled to come up with the primary insurance amount, or PIA. So this is the amount the worker is going to receive at full retirement age. I told you it's complicated. So thankfully, we don't have to do this ourselves. But I wanted you to understand kind of how the formula worked. And again, this is recorded, so we're going to send you out the recording and you'll be able to learn it again if you want to be able to calculate your own. However, we'll show you what to do to actually get that information in a minute. So it's good to know how to calculate, but let's just cut to the chase. Why shouldn't I claim at 62 instead of waiting all the way till age 70? And this is where the mindset starts to get people into trouble, because your monthly benefit will be reduced if you claim early. And benefits could actually be withheld if you continue to work. So what this means is that even when you maximize your claiming strategy, the amount you actually receive is going to be smaller in reality because of taxes and parts of your Medicare coverage that comes out of your Social Security benefit. So when should you apply for benefits? A lot of you may have just signed onto the webinar because you thought this will be a simple thing and I can just find out when should I apply. And unfortunately, it really depends on your specific situation. It can make a difference of thousands of dollars over your lifetime. It's important to realize that there are unique factors to your situation that we have to take into account. And so these are some of the examples: your health status, your life expectancy, family history on health, your need for income, whether or not you plan to continue to work is a big one. And if you're a surviving spouse, whether you have other financial resources or not. So that last part about survivor needs, which we'll get to in just a minute, factors into the next question. For most people, Social Security benefits alone will probably not be enough to live on throughout retirement. So let's take a closer look at how your claiming age impacts your benefits. So full retirement age is the age at which you can claim full unreduced benefits. And like I said, it used to be 65. And now we're seeing a higher full retirement age being phased in. So for everyone born between 1943 and 54, full retirement age is 66. For everybody born in 1960 and later, full retirement age is 67. And if you're born in between there, it's a few months. So between 66 and 67 is full retirement age, depending on when you were born. So remember that I said earlier that your primary insurance amount, or PIA, is the benefit you receive at full retirement age. What happens if you apply before that? Well, your benefit gets reduced. You're going to receive a percentage of that full retirement age benefit, or the PIA, depending on when you apply. So this chart shows you if your full retirement age is 66 and you apply at age 62, you're only going to get 75% of that PIA. At 63, you're going to get 80%. If your full retirement age is 67, you apply at 62, you're only going to get 70% of your PIA. It's important for you to know these are prorated on a monthly basis, not an annual basis. So that's something that a lot of people aren't aware of. Typically, we think of we're either going to take Social Security at 62, at full retirement age, or at 70, or on a solid year, like at 63 or 64. But for every month that you delay, you're getting additional money. It's on a monthly proration. On the other hand, if you apply for Social Security after full retirement age, you're going to earn delayed credits of 8% for each year you delay. So if your full retirement age is 66 and you wait till 67 to apply, your benefit's going to be 108% of your primary insurance amount. At age 68, it's going to be 116%, and so on. So after age 70, you can't earn any more credits. So don't wait until past age 70 to apply for Social Security benefits. There's no benefits of that. So I'm guessing you're not too interested in calculating by hand. Like I said, the AIM and the PIA and all that stuff. So here are some resources for you. And really, there are calculators. I'm just going to type into the chat again. It's ssa.gov. Let's see here. Oh, I realize there we go, ssa.gov. And you may not have received that actuary.org. Looking here, I think I sent it just to the host. So I'm going to type that in again so you can get that one. And hopefully that's helpful for you. But there's a wealth of information here on the Social Security site. Once you go through the process to get your password and get logged in to username and password for there, don't lose it, because it's a real pain to get a new one. You have to give them your whole life history, basically. But it is a secure site, so you should feel comfortable about using it. And there's a lot of good information on there, so it's a good resource for you. Okay. So the obvious advantage to delaying benefits is that your monthly benefit's going to be higher. Most of you know that. A baby boomer who has a primary insurance amount of $3,000 and full retirement age of 67 would get only $2,100 a month if he applied at 62. But he would get $3,720 if he waited till age 70. Now that's a big difference. But then when we factor in cost of living adjustments, that amount actually, if he waits till age 70, that amount actually jumps up to $4,359 at a 2% cost of living adjustment. So it's important that we don't lose sight of that cost of living adjustment, because the disparity shows up once we factor that in. It might still be hard to pass up Social Security checks when you can start receiving them at 62. But if you live a long time, you're going to be glad you waited. And the longer you live, of course, the more income you'll have by waiting until age 70. So how can you maximize your benefits? Let's look at two strategies. So the first thing you can do while you still have time is improve your earnings record. Check your annual statement on the Social Security site to make sure your earnings record is correct. While mistakes are rare, they do happen. I have found mistakes for clients, and it actually delays your Social Security benefits. So you want to make sure that you get that lined out before you're ready to file. Double check your name, the spelling, the middle initial, double check what they have on record for your date of birth. I found errors on those things, And that's no fun if you find them right when you're wanting to start Social Security, because the government isn't fast on on correcting things. So it takes a while to get it all done. So the next thing is to consider how you might be able to improve your earnings record. So if you don't have 35 years of earnings, can you wait a few more years so that you're not going to have a bunch of zeros filled in to lower your average? If you had several years of low earnings earlier in your career, can you work a few more years now while you're in your peak earnings years so that those low earnings years will be replaced by high earning ones? It really pays to understand how they look at that, because that decision, just that you're making an educated decision, it can really impact the overall picture. Even if you start receiving Social Security, but you continue to work, your earnings record is going to be updated. So it's important to know that if you start receiving Social Security before reaching full retirement age and you earn over around $19,000 a year, Social Security does reduce your benefits by $1 for every $2 that you earn over that amount. So applying for benefits at the optimal time is the best way to maximize your benefit. The main reason for delaying benefits is because that'll result in the highest lifetime benefit for you and your survivor. But there really is no one size fits all to the question. It's as in a lot of other cases, it depends. But the important thing is to apply at the time that's optimal for your specific situation. Did you know that Social Security benefits might be taxable? So let's look at maximizing your benefits by minimizing taxes. Some people think that once they get to a certain age, they don't have to pay tax anymore. And I'm here to tell you that it's absolutely not true. So we talked about the earnings test, and that really isn't a tax, but it is a way that the government takes back some of your income. So we're going to include it in the discussion here. It's different from true taxation, which we'll talk about next. But one important consideration is in making this decision on when to apply is whether or not you plan to work. Generally speaking, I tell people, if you're going to continue to work, it probably makes sense for you to wait and delay your benefit. But if you apply before full retirement age, $1 in Social Security benefits is going to be withheld for every $2 you make over this 19,000 figure. So it's not really taken away. Rather, your benefit's going to be adjusted up when you turn full retirement age to make it as if you had applied later. So some of your benefits, if they're withheld, your new benefit will be higher. So you see, it doesn't go into a black hole. You don't lose it, but people get they get frustrated when they don't realize that this rule is in place, and they get a letter from Social Security saying, "Hey, we're decreasing your Social Security benefit." It's like, what? So just be aware of that. Don't let the earnings test discourage you from working, though, because the more money you earn, the more money you'll have, and Social Security doesn't penalize you for working. Once the adjustment's made, you're going to end up with a higher benefit for the rest of your life. And of course, the earnings are going to contribute to your financial well-being. So if you just wait till full retirement age or later to apply for benefits, you don't have to worry about the earnings test. So now let's talk about true taxation. And Social Security can be taxable. This is another area, you might want to go get another drink if you don't like formulas, because this is another formula thing. So Social Security, for taxation purposes of Social Security, the government looks at something called provisional income. And provisional income is not the same as adjusted gross income, which is what shows up on your tax return. And a lot of these formulas for retirement contributions and different things are kind of focused on adjusted gross income. We're talking about provisional income, which actually includes your adjusted gross income plus half of your Social Security benefit, and any tax exempt interest gets added in too. So it's kind of a very strange animal here. So provisional income. If provisional income is under $32,000 for a married couple, then you don't have tax on Social Security. If it's between $32,000 and $44,000, remember this includes half of your Social Security benefit. If it's between there, then 50% of your Social Security benefits are taxable. If your income, provisional income, is over $44,000, then up to 85% of your benefits are going to be taxable. Now, hear me, I'm not saying you're at the 85% tax bracket, but 85% of your benefit will be subject to tax. There's a difference there. So the thresholds for a single person, it's very similar. So 25,000 and 34,000. So the important thing to remember is that up to 85% of your Social Security can be subject to tax, and it depends on how much other income you have. So once we understand that, we think about how to minimize the tax. Well, you could lower your income. Sometimes that's not a popular idea, but especially investment income. And you got to keep in mind that mutual bond interest, which is usually tax-free, it counts as income for the purpose of this provisional income. So we have to be careful with that. Thinking ahead, if you have an IRA, anticipating the required minimum distribution that you have to take at age 72, that could actually cause you to be in a higher tax bracket because there's a certain amount that you have to pull out each year. So you can think about either drawing down your IRA before age 72, or you could convert all or some of your traditional IRA to a Roth IRA, which generates tax-free income. And you would want to do that, of course, before you start claiming Social Security. So delaying claiming Social Security is going to reduce the number of years that your benefits are subject to tax. And think about how to reduce your expenses, because it's hard to reduce your income without thinking about how to reduce your expenses. You can pay down debt, adopt a simpler lifestyle, continue to manage your taxes throughout retirement, not just the first few years. And of course, consult with your tax advisor about your specific individual situation. I am not a tax advisor anymore, so make sure that you consult with your tax advisor about it. Remember that if you're 65 and older and enrolled in Medicare, your Part B premiums are going to be deducted from your Social Security check. So just keep that in mind. Okay, and when you think about when to apply, it's very complex to figure out what's best for you and really requires a customized analysis. Here are some things to remember. If you apply early, your benefit starts out at some fraction of your primary insurance amount, like 75% or 80% or whatever, and remains at that percentage for the rest of your life. It doesn't go up to 100% when you reach full retirement age. So if you claim early, you're locking in that lower amount for the rest of your life. Of course, cost of living adjustments magnify that impact of early or delayed retirement as well. Your benefits may be taxed and further reduced by Medicare premiums. Don't let the earnings test discourage you from working. It's actually helpful for many. And finally, delaying your benefit can give the surviving spouse more income. And that's an important thing to consider, especially if you're thinking something like this. I'm not going to live long, so why shouldn't I just claim my benefit while I can? So the typical answer to this question is, for couples, you should always maximize the higher earner's benefit to protect the surviving spouse who's going to step into that benefit after the higher earner dies. Higher earning spouses, therefore, are encouraged to delay benefits to age 70, because that's going to give their spouse the highest benefit after they die. Let's look at how spousal benefits work. Social Security was instituted in an earlier era where most married women did not work. So to give women a measure of financial security in their old age, the program offers spousal benefits. And the spousal benefit can be for a man or a woman. It doesn't have to be just the woman. So the spousal benefit is 50% of the worker's primary insurance amount. So if she applies at full retirement age, it's 50%. So let's look at an example. We've got John here. If John's primary insurance amount is $2,000 and Jane's is $800, and if Jane applies for a Social Security at full retirement age, her benefit is going to be half of John's, which is $1,000, which is $200 more than her benefit. Her benefit was $800. So in this case, it makes sense for her. She gets the higher of the two. And so she claims on his benefit and she gets $1,000. A lot of people aren't aware of that. So keep that in mind. If you have a spouse that stayed at home for a period of time or just, was working part-time and didn't have quite the earnings, they may benefit from receiving half of your benefit. The basic rules for spousal benefits: the primary worker has to have filed for benefits. The spouse cannot claim spousal benefit until the primary worker has filed. The lower earning spouse has to be at least 62 for a reduced benefit, or full retirement age for the full spousal benefit. That works just like what the primary worker does. So spousal benefits do not earn delayed credits after full retirement age. I'm sure you have lots of questions about spousal benefits. Let's look at some ways to maximize those. So the goal would be to maximize the income for both of you while you're living, and then maximize income for the survivor after one of you dies. It can be complicated. So by understanding all the considerations and doing some calculations, it is possible for married couples to come up with the right solution. And let's look at a couple of strategies here. The first thing to look at when you're coordinating spousal benefits, the lower earning spouse's primary insurance amount, is it more or less than half of the higher earning spouse's primary insurance? If the lower earning spouse's benefit is more than half of the higher one, the way to maximize benefits is for both to claim at 70. I'm going to say that again. If the lower earning spouse's benefit is more than half of the higher earning spouse's primary insurance amount, the way to maximize lifetime benefits is for both to claim at 70. if both spouses have average or longer than average life expectancies, it'll maximize their benefits for the family over their lifetime. Then, depending on the spouse's ages, one spouse may be able to claim a spousal benefit between age 66 and 70. The rules have changed. So this is really important. If you were born before 1954, you may be able to claim a spousal benefit while your own benefit builds delayed credits. I was doing these seminars several years ago before the rules changed. This was an amazing planning tool, and so amazing that the government took it away. But we were able to, it's kind of like have your cake and eat it too. It was wonderful. But I just want you to know, if you were born before 1954, you probably are grandfathered. So I would love for you to contact us. If you were born in 1954 or later, you don't qualify for this. But just wanted to mention that. It could actually mean tens of thousands of dollars in extra benefits for you. If the lower earning spouse's primary insurance amount is less than 50% of the higher earning spouses, then you may want to do a hybrid. So the lower earning spouse goes ahead and claims early, and that gets income started as soon as the lower earner turns 62 or whenever they stop working. The higher earning spouse then still claims at 70 because they're maximizing that higher benefit over both lifetimes. Again, talk to your financial advisor so that they can help you figure out the right strategy for coordinating spousal benefits, because it is complicated, especially with the recent rule changes, and you really have to run the numbers. So what if you're widowed or divorced? How does that impact things? So this is a very interesting question with a satisfying answer. There are some interesting little twists to this. So, and I know you think I'm crazy because I think this is interesting, but it is there. You'll see here in a little bit. So if you're widowed or divorced, you actually may be eligible for survivor benefits, divorced spouse survivor benefits, or divorced spouse benefits. So by coordinating these with your own record, you actually may be able to increase your total benefits. First, let's take a look at the basic survivor benefit that a spouse would receive, hopefully after maximizing the other spouse's benefit. Survivor benefits can be complicated. It's important to understand how they work, because decisions that you make now are going to influence the amount of the survivor benefit later on. Two factors influence the amount of the survivor benefit. The first factor is the age at which the deceased spouse claimed his own benefit. If he or she originally applied before full retirement age, the Social Security, survivor benefit will be limited to his or her actual benefit, or here we go again, I don't know how they come up with this, 82.5% of the primary insurance amount, whichever is higher. Just going to let that soak in a little bit. So if the deceased applied at full retirement age, the survivor benefit is going to be 100% of the primary insurance amount. If they applied at age 70, the survivor benefit earns delayed credits. So we'll see an example in a minute. The second factor influencing the amount of the survivor benefit is the age at which the widow claims the benefit. So if he or she claims it at age 60 or 50, if the survivor is disabled, they can actually claim as early as 50. But if they claim early at 60, the survivor benefit is going to be 71.5% of the decedent's primary insurance amount. And if they claim at full retirement age or later, the survivor benefit is 100% of the original amount. And they can apply anytime between 60 and 70, and it'll be prorated. Now, if both spouses are receiving benefits and one spouse dies, this is very important for you to know. One of the benefits fades away. The other spouse switches to the higher benefit. There's only one benefit. So, hypothetical example. So Joe and Julie are married. Both are over full retirement age and they're receiving Social Security. Joe's benefit is $2,800. Julie's is $1,500. If Joe dies, Julie's $1,500 is going to stop and she'll start receiving $2,800. So please note about survivor planning. When one spouse passes, one of the benefits is lost. The lowest benefit is lost. And most surviving spouses need at least 2/3 of the amount of income they were receiving as a couple to continue their lifestyle. So it's important to plan for the loss of the spouse and their benefit. So even though it's often the higher benefit that will be retained, the death of the spouse means the loss of a check, which means less money coming into the household. So please take that into account. So let's see what would happen if the deceased spouse had delayed the start of Social Security. So in this example, Joe files at 70. His benefit is actually 124% of his primary insurance amount. So he's getting about $3,500. Then he dies. Now Julie's benefit is going to be about $3,500. So you can see that's a big difference. It is very important to consider when you're thinking about when to start benefits. Some rules for survivor benefits. So in order for the surviving spouse to receive survivor benefits, the marriage must have lasted at least 9 months unless the death is an accident. So you have to have been married 9 months. To start the benefits, you have to be at least age 60 unless you're disabled. If the widow applies before full retirement age, the benefit's going to be reduced as it is for regular retirement benefits. Some of the same principles that go into deciding when to apply for regular retirement benefits also apply for survivor benefits. This next one this is where it starts to get kind of interesting. If you remarry before age 60, you will not be able to receive a survivor benefit based on your previous spouse's earnings record unless your remarriage ends. So I have seen this several times. You may know somebody that lost a spouse and then they found another significant other and they chose not to remarry because they didn't want to lose their Social Security benefit. So this is what they're talking about when they say that, or when you hear that, this is what that means. Now, I'm not suggesting that as a planning tool, just saying it's real, and you probably know somebody I know several people that have dealt with this. So, whoops, and then I wanted to make another point here. So divorced spouse survivor benefits are available if the marriage lasted at least 10 years. So again, we're talking about now divorced spouse benefits. So if the marriage lasted at least 10 years. So we're going to look at that a little more since many people have been divorced and it's not a really widely known or understood benefit. So there are quite some interesting things here. So a divorced spouse can receive Social Security based on the ex-spouse's work record, as long as the marriage lasted 10 years and the person receiving the benefits is not married. Remember, men can receive divorced spouse benefits too. If the divorce occurred more than 2 years ago, the ex doesn't need to have filed for his benefit before she can get hers, but she has to be at least 62. Okay. Here are the rules for divorced spouse benefits. This is just mind-boggling to me. More than one ex-spouse can receive benefits on the same worker's record. So if your ex-husband has remarried a couple times, all 3 ex-wives can claim divorced spouse benefits on his earnings record, as long as each marriage lasted at least 10 years. The benefits paid to one ex-spouse do not affect those paid to the worker, the current spouse, or other ex-spouses. So it's not like you're sharing a benefit with the other exes. Your benefit is standalone. So think about this. We could have, I don't even know how many people that could be claiming on one person's earnings record. I just think that's really interesting, and maybe one of the reasons that Social Security needs to be reformed. I don't know, but that's a lot of people claiming on potentially on one person's earnings record. So you don't need to know where your ex lives. It would be helpful if you knew the Social Security number, because Social Security has to be able to look up his or her record. You're going to have documentation showing the dates of marriage and divorce as well. And if you're receiving divorced spouse benefits and you remarry, your divorced spouse benefits will stop. So you can't remarry if you're going to do this strategy. However, you may then be eligible for spousal benefits based on your new husband's work record, or you can switch to your own benefit if you qualify. So yeah, so by now you're taking a deep breath and going, oh, wow, this is really more complicated than I thought. I totally get it. So I didn't realize a lot of this stuff until I started educating myself, because it was clear that clients needed help with all of this. And Social Security plays a very important role in an overall retirement plan. So it is a lot to take in, but we're going to circle back now to that brain teaser. Remember at the beginning? So you may have heard the phrase behavioral finance. It's the study of the influence of psychology on the behavior of investors. So for our brain teaser questions, people would usually say they'd rather be early than delayed. Did you say that? You'd rather be early than delayed for many things in life. And they'd also rather get a bonus instead of a penalty, of course. But as we've seen in our presentation, when it comes to Social Security claiming strategies, early is to penalty, as delayed is to bonus. Now, I don't think the government set up the phrasing this way intentionally, but it certainly has influenced people who have only seen their claiming choices described as early versus delayed. So we don't normally see the claiming question positioned as one of, do you want a penalty or do you want a bonus? Which I think that's the way it should be positioned. I think you can see the value of framing it in that way. So the brain teaser is a good way to loop back to our original problem, review what we've learned, and then close with the solution. Here we go. This is what we started with as our core challenge. People are hurting their retirements by making terrible, costly decisions about Social Security. And then we went through 4 insights designed to help us get an understanding of the problem and develop a belief in a solution that might work for them. So the insights were, number one, Social Security offers inflation protected income for life, including survivor benefits. Number two, your monthly benefit will be reduced if you claim early. It's the penalty, right? Couples should always maximize the higher earner's benefit for the surviving spouse. Number four, if you're widowed or divorced, you may be eligible for benefits that can increase your check. And so that understanding of the problem brings us to this solution, which is everyone needs a personalized Social Security claiming analysis to understand how and when is the right time to how they can improve their monthly benefit and how it will fit into their overall retirement plan and when to claim. So it's important to consider Social Security in the context of other retirement resources. You may have a pension, an IRA, a 401k, required distributions. You're going to have to take at 72. Plans of working in retirement. Everything should be coordinated to give you the income that you need for the rest of your life. Please don't be afraid to ask for help. This is overwhelming to try to do on your own. And it's easy when it's just a matter of stashing part of your salary into a 401k. But then when the time comes to convert the nest egg into an income stream, you want to make sure it doesn't run out. And Social Security can actually be the bedrock of your plan when it's coordinated with everything else. Again, Social Security personnel, if you've been to the office, they're very kind, they're very helpful. When we had COVID so rampant, a lot of the offices were closed and we were dealing with them over the phone. They can't make recommendations. It's not their job to do long-range Social Security planning. They don't know what's going on with the rest of your personal financial life. So this is something you should be talking to with your financial advisor who can help you with claiming strategies. So make sure that you're asking. If they're not talking about it with you, make sure and ask them about it. Have them help you design the best plan to move forward. So we've covered a lot of ground, but you probably still have questions. When do you apply for Social Security? The whole reason you came to the webinar. When do I apply? Depends. What if you want to keep working? What if you've already applied? How much will your benefits be? How can you coordinate spousal benefits? What's the best long-term strategy for your situation? What do I do next? So as I mentioned earlier, this is just one of the many services that we provide to our clients as we work. It's just one of many as we protect their nest egg. It's important to cover there. And then in closing, so we're going to take time for questions. If you have questions, I want you to know this was a very analytical, detailed webinar, and most of them are not going to be this over the top with numbers. The next one is April the 5th at the same time. And this one is going to be a lot more conceptual, a lot more laid back. We're going to talk about how to simplify your money decisions and some basic money principles that apply to everybody. It is not a series, it's just a single session. And then we're going to do one in May. We'll take a break for the summer. And then we're going to do, we're actually going to do a series, which will kind of piggyback on this money principles one in April. And then in November, we actually had Eventide, one of our investment companies. They're going to be doing the webinar for November. Really excited about that. So looking forward to that, and we'll send you more information as it gets closer. So